Today, I want to talk to you about something that most men will never understand, a skill so subtle yet so devastating that it has decided the fate of kingdoms, destroyed enemies without a single battle, and created an aura of fear around those who master it. This isn't about physical strength, loud voices, or winning arguments. This is about something far more dangerous: the strategic use of silence and withdrawal. Have you ever noticed how some men, when disrespected or challenged, immediately explode into action, defending themselves, arguing their point, making sure everyone knows they won't be pushed around, while others simply go quiet, turn away, and disappear without a single word? And have you ever wondered which response actually holds more power? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now, let me ask you something personal. Has this ever happened to you? Someone disrespects you, maybe at work, maybe online, maybe even someone close to you. And you feel that immediate fire in your chest, that urge to respond, to defend yourself, to make them understand they can't treat you that way. It's a natural instinct, isn't it? We've been conditioned to believe that a real man stands his ground, fights back, never lets anyone get away with anything. But what if I told you that this very instinct is exactly what keeps most men trapped in a cycle of exhaustion, manipulation, and powerlessness? 500 years ago, Niccolò Machiavelli watched the princes of Renaissance Italy destroy themselves. These were powerful men, rulers of cities, commanders of armies, yet they fell not because they were weak, but because they didn't know when to walk away. They fought every battle, answered every challenge, defended every slight against their honor, and in doing so, they scattered their power across meaningless conflicts until they had nothing left for the wars that actually mattered. Machiavelli understood something that separates legends from forgotten names. The most dangerous man in any room isn't the one who's ready to fight, it's the one who's ready to walk away without explanation. Think about that for a moment. When someone provokes you and you react, what have you just revealed? You've shown them exactly how to control you. You've given them a button they can press anytime they want to drain your energy, steal your focus, and pull you into their world. But when you go silent, when you simply withdraw your presence without anger, without justification, without needing them to understand why, you've just become unpredictable, and unpredictability is terrifying. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely change how you handle conflict, respect, and power dynamics in every area of your life. There's a reason why certain men command respect without ever raising their voice, why their silence carries more weight than other men's words, why their absence creates more anxiety than their presence ever did. And it all comes down to understanding one fundamental truth about human psychology that Machiavelli decoded centuries ago. Here's what Machiavelli discovered that changed everything about how we understand power and control. He wasn't sitting in some ivory tower theorizing about conflict. He was right there in the chaos of Renaissance Florence, watching real men with real armies make decisions that would either elevate them to legendary status or erase them from history entirely. And what he saw was fascinating. The princes who fell weren't necessarily the weakest or the least intelligent. In fact, many of them were brilliant strategists on the battlefield. But they all shared one fatal flaw. They couldn't resist engagement. Every insult to their honor demanded a response. Every challenge to their authority required immediate action. Every minor slight became a battle they had to win. These men believed they were demonstrating strength, showing the world they couldn't be pushed around. But Machiavelli saw the hidden truth behind this pattern. Each battle, even when won, drained them, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. They scattered their resources, their focus, their strategic attention across dozens of meaningless conflicts while their real enemies watched and waited. By the time a genuinely important battle arrived, one that actually threatened their position, they had nothing left. They'd spent everything proving themselves to people who ultimately didn't matter. This is where the transformation in thinking has to happen, and it's uncomfortable because it goes against everything we've been taught about being a man. We're told that backing down is weakness, that silence equals defeat, that if you don't fight back immediately, people will walk all over you. But that's the trap, you see. That mindset keeps you locked in a reactive state where everyone else controls your decisions. Someone disrespects you, and suddenly your entire day revolves around that moment. Your thoughts circle back to what you should have said, what you should have done, how you're going to respond. And congratulations, they're now living rent-free in your head, dictating how you spend your mental energy. The moment you engage with provocation, you've already lost something crucial. You've revealed your hand. You've shown that you can be baited, that your emotions are accessible, that your attention can be hijacked by anyone willing to push the right buttons. This is the devastating impact of reactive behavior that most men never recognize until it's too late. Every time you respond to drama, to insults, to challenges that don't actually threaten anything real in your life, you're training people how to manipulate you. You're essentially saying, here's my weakness, here's how to pull me into your world, here's how to make me dance to your tune. Now, I want to go even deeper into this, because understanding the trap is only the beginning. The real question is, what separates a man who can walk away from one who can't? What's happening psychologically that makes strategic withdrawal feel impossible for most men, even when they intellectually understand it's the smarter move? Write in the comments, I see the trap, if this is clicking for you, because what comes next reveals the hidden mechanism behind why your ego fights you every single time you try to choose silence over reaction. The transformation in mindset starts when you realize something most men never grasp. Winning still costs you. Think about that for a second. You get into an argument, you defend yourself brilliantly, you prove your point beyond any doubt, you walk away victorious, and what did it cost you? 2 hours of your time, mental energy that could have gone into building something meaningful, emotional bandwidth that's now depleted. Maybe you damaged a relationship that actually mattered, or revealed information about yourself that someone can use against you later. Victory isn't free. Every battle you win extracts a price from your finite resources. If this type of content speaks to you, if you're genuinely interested in understanding power dynamics and strategic thinking at a deeper level, then subscribe to this channel. This is where we explore the uncomfortable truths that most men avoid their entire lives. Machiavelli watched this pattern destroy entire dynasties. The powerful families of Florence would win conflict after conflict, crushing their enemies, proving their dominance, and then one day, when a truly existential threat appeared, they had nothing left to give. They'd spent themselves on petty vendettas, minor insults, and symbolic victories. That meant absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of their survival. Meanwhile, the princes who seemed quieter, who let certain provocations pass without response, who appeared almost passive to observers, these were the ones who endured. Not because they were afraid to fight, but because they understood resource management at a level their opponents couldn't comprehend. This is where people fundamentally misunderstand what it means to have a warrior mentality. They think it means being ready to fight at all times, never backing down, always proving yourself. But that's not warrior thinking. That's ego thinking disguised as strength. When Machiavelli said a prince must think only of war, he wasn't creating an image of some rage-filled tyrant who fights everyone constantly. He was describing a man whose mind operates on strategic principles every single moment. A man who's always calculating, always assessing, always thinking 3 moves ahead. And here's the revelation that changes everything. Sometimes the most strategic move is no move at all. The weak man fights because his ego is fragile. It needs constant reinforcement, constant proof that he's strong, respected, feared. So when someone challenges him, his ego interprets it as a survival threat. He must respond. He must win. He must show everyone he's not weak. But look at what's really happening. He's being controlled. His decisions aren't coming from strategy. They're coming from emotional need. He's not choosing his battles. His battles are choosing him. Anyone who knows how to push the right buttons can redirect his entire day, his entire focus, his entire energy toward whatever drama they want to create. The strong man, the truly dangerous one, operates from a completely different framework. His decisions come from cold calculation. Does this battle serve my larger purpose? Does engaging here move me closer to my actual goals? Will the cost of this conflict be worth what I gain? And most importantly, am I choosing this fight, or is this fight being chosen for me? When he walks away from provocation, it's not because he's scared, it's because he's done the math and decided his time is worth more than proving something to someone who doesn't matter. That's the hidden truth behind real power. It's not about never losing, it's about never fighting battles that don't serve your ultimate victory. But here's where it gets really interesting, because there's a psychological mechanism at play that makes this nearly impossible for most men to execute, even when they understand it intellectually. The journey from reactive to strategic requires confronting something uncomfortable about yourself. Drop strategic mindset in the comments if you're ready to face what's really stopping you from walking away when you know you should. Because what I'm about to reveal about human psychology and ego protection will make everything suddenly make sense. Here's what's really happening behind the scenes when you feel that overwhelming urge to respond to disrespect. Your ego isn't just wounded, it's genuinely convinced that if you don't defend yourself right now, your entire identity is under threat. This isn't logical, but it feels absolutely real in the moment. The mechanism is fascinating. Your brain interprets social disrespect the same way it interprets physical danger. That's why your heart races, your thoughts spiral, and you feel this urgent need to act immediately. Your ego is essentially screaming at you that if you let this slide, if you don't prove yourself, then maybe you really are what they're saying you are. Maybe you really don't matter. Maybe you really are weak. This is why social media has become such a perfect laboratory for observing character. You can watch men spend hours, literally hours, defending themselves in comment sections against people they've never met, people who have zero impact on their actual lives. A stranger with an anime profile picture says something critical, and suddenly this man's entire evening is consumed with crafting responses, gathering evidence, building arguments, all to prove his worth to someone who doesn't even know his real name. What's driving that behavior? It's not strategy. It's not logic. It's pure ego fragility. That man psychologically cannot tolerate the idea of someone, anyone, thinking less of him without being corrected. But watch what happens when a man with genuine inner security encounters the same provocation. Someone tries to bait him, insult him, diminish him, and he just doesn't respond. Not because he didn't see it, not because he's taking the high road. He simply looked at it, assessed whether it served any purpose to engage, decided it didn't, and moved on with his day. And here's where the power dynamic completely flips. The person who threw that provocation is now confused. They expected conflict. They wanted a reaction. They were ready for the argument, and they got nothing. Silence, absence, emptiness. That silence creates something devastating in the provocateur's mind. They start questioning everything. Did he see it? Why didn't he respond? Does he think I'm not worth his time? Is he planning something I can't see? What does his silence mean? And the more they think about it, the more his absence occupies their mental space. He's not even engaging, yet he's living rent-free in their head. This is the hidden truth about psychological warfare that Machiavelli understood perfectly. Sometimes your absence is more powerful than your presence. Sometimes not fighting is a more devastating victory than any argument you could win. The transformation happens when you realize that your need to respond isn't about the other person at all. It's about your own internal validation system. You're not defending yourself from them. You're defending yourself from your own fear that maybe they're right. And that's the uncomfortable revelation most men will avoid their entire lives. The journey from reactive to strategic isn't about learning techniques or memorizing principles. It's about building such unshakable internal security that external opinions, especially from people who don't matter, simply don't register as threats anymore. But understanding this intellectually is very different from being able to execute it in real time. There's a practical framework that Machiavelli would use to decide in the moment whether to engage or withdraw, and it's based on 5 specific calculations that most men never even consider. Right, I control my response in the comments if you're tracking with this, because what comes next is the exact decision-making process that separates men who talk about strategic thinking from men who actually live it every single day. Let me show you how this plays out in the real world, because theory means nothing if you can't recognize the pattern when you're living inside it. Think about your workplace for a moment. There's always drama happening, right? Someone's upset about a decision. There's tension between departments. People are forming alliances and taking sides. Rumors are spreading about who said what. And you can watch in real time how different men navigate this environment. The weak ones get pulled into everything. They have opinions about every conflict. They're sharing their thoughts on who's right and who's wrong. They're defending themselves against perceived slights. They're making sure everyone knows where they stand. These men genuinely believe they're building respect, that by engaging with the politics they're securing their position. But here's what's actually happening. They're revealing themselves completely. Everyone now knows exactly what triggers them, what they care about, what they'll fight over, who they'll align with. They've become predictable. And in any competitive environment, predictable means controllable. Meanwhile, there's always that one guy who somehow stays above it all. Not in an obvious way. He's not announcing that he's staying out of drama or making a show of being neutral. He simply doesn't participate. When the gossip starts, he's focused on his work. When people try to pull him into choosing sides, he gives a non-committal response and changes the subject. When drama explodes, he's somehow not involved. And people start wondering about him. Why doesn't he engage? What does he know that we don't? Is he too focused on bigger things? Is he connected to upper management in ways we don't see? The mystery around him creates more perceived power than any active participation could have given him. This is the impact of strategic withdrawal in professional settings. Your absence from drama makes you unpredictable, and unpredictable men are respected because they can't be manipulated through the usual social mechanisms. The same principle reveals itself even more clearly in relationships. When a woman tests a man, and yes, testing happens, whether consciously or unconsciously, she's essentially trying to understand his boundaries and his emotional availability. Maybe she creates some drama. Maybe she withdraws affection to see how he'll react. Maybe she mentions another man's attention. A weak man immediately goes into reactive mode. He gets emotional, starts questioning her, fights for her attention, needs her to understand how much he cares. And what has he just proven? That he's controllable, that his emotional state depends on her actions, that she holds all the leverage. But when a man with genuine self-security faces the same test, something different happens. He goes quiet. He pulls back, not as a manipulation tactic, not as some game he learned online, but as authentic assessment. He's genuinely asking himself, is this person adding value to my life or subtracting from it? Is this behavior something I want to accept? And if the answer is no, he withdraws his attention and energy completely. No drama, no explanations, no fighting, just distance. And that distance, that genuine willingness to walk away, hits harder than any argument or emotional display ever could, because it demonstrates something terrifying: she doesn't control him. The transformation in how you show up in both professional and personal environments comes from understanding one fundamental truth. People can only manipulate you if you need something from them more than they need something from you. The moment you become genuinely comfortable with walking away, with opting out, with letting situations unfold without your participation, you've shifted the entire power dynamic. But there's a critical distinction here that most men miss completely. Leave walking away in the comments if this is resonating, because what I'm about to explain is the difference between strategic withdrawal and just running away. And confusing these two destroys men who try to implement this principle without understanding the nuance beneath it. Here's the distinction that changes everything. Running away comes from fear. Strategic withdrawal comes from calculation. When you run away, you're avoiding something you're afraid to face. When you strategically withdraw, you're making a conscious decision that your energy is better spent elsewhere. The external action might look the same. In both cases, you're leaving the situation, but the internal state is completely different, and people can sense that difference even if they can't articulate it. This is what Machiavelli understood about fear and respect. He famously said, "It's better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But most people stop reading there and miss the deeper revelation. Fear doesn't come from aggression or violence or constantly proving how tough you are. Fear comes from uncertainty. People fear what they cannot predict, what they cannot understand, what they cannot control. When you're always engaging, always reacting, always available for conflict, you become predictable. And predictable means they can plan around you, manipulate you, prepare for you. But when you withdraw without explanation, when you simply disappear from situations that don't serve you, you create something far more powerful than fear of your strength. You create fear of your unpredictability. They don't know if you're retreating or repositioning. They don't know if you considered them beneath your concern, or if you're planning something they can't see. That uncertainty lives in their mind and grows. This is the hidden mechanism behind why certain men command respect without ever needing to demonstrate force. Their willingness to withdraw, to disappear, to become unavailable creates a mystery around them that people find genuinely unsettling. You've seen this before. Maybe there's someone in your life who just opts out of drama, and their absence from conflict somehow makes them seem more formidable than the people actively fighting. That's not an accident. That's strategic presence management, and it's based on a principle that applies to everything valuable. Scarcity creates worth. Think about this for a second. If you're always available, always willing to engage, always reactive to whatever situation presents itself, what message are you sending? You're saying your time is abundant, your energy is unlimited, your attention is free. Your presence becomes expected, guaranteed, cheap. But a man who can walk away, who can disappear from people and situations that don't serve his larger purpose, who can watch drama unfold without participating, his presence becomes rare, and rare things are valuable. When he does choose to engage, people actually pay attention because they know he's selective about where he invests his energy. Machiavelli watched this play out in the courts of Renaissance Italy. The princes who were always available, always fighting, always proving themselves, they became background noise. But the prince who would simply withdraw from certain conflicts, who would let provocations go unanswered, who would disappear for periods of time, his eventual engagement carried weight because everyone knew he didn't waste movement on things that didn't matter. His decisions came from strategy, not ego, and that made him genuinely dangerous. The transformation in how people perceive you happens the moment you internalize this truth. Your presence is a gift, not a guarantee, and gifts can be withdrawn. The question is whether you have the internal security to actually withdraw when needed, or if your ego will keep you trapped in every conflict that presents itself. Put selective engagement in the comments if you're beginning to see how this applies to your own life, because what comes next is about building the practical skill of knowing exactly when to engage and when to disappear. And this is where most men fail spectacularly, even when they understand the theory perfectly. The practical application of this principle comes down to making better decisions in the heat of the moment, and that requires a framework. When provocation happens, when conflict arises, when you feel that familiar pull to engage, you need to ask yourself specific questions before you move. First, what's actually at stake here? Not what your ego says is at stake, but what's genuinely real. If someone insults you on social media, what's really being threatened? Your ego, that's it. Nothing tangible, nothing that affects your income, your relationships that matter, your actual life trajectory. But if someone is actively damaging your reputation to people who control opportunities you need, now there's something real at stake. The objective determines whether engagement serves you. Second question, where is this battle happening? Machiavelli was obsessed with terrain because he understood that fighting on your enemy's ground, using their weapons under their conditions, is how you lose even when you're stronger. If someone tries to drag you into an argument on their platform, with their audience, using their framework for what matters, you've already accepted a disadvantaged position. Strategic withdrawal means refusing to fight battles where the terrain doesn't favor you. You don't win by playing their game. You win by refusing to play at all or by choosing different ground entirely. Third, what's the actual cost here? Every engagement costs something. Time you'll never get back. Mental energy that could build something valuable. Emotional bandwidth that gets depleted. Sometimes the cost of winning exceeds what you gain from victory. And this is the calculation weak men never make because they're too busy reacting. They fight battles that cost them everything and gain them nothing simply because their ego couldn't tolerate non-engagement. Fourth, and this one's critical, are you emotionally compromised right now? Because if you're angry, if you're hurt, if you're reactive, every decision you make from that state will likely be wrong. Strategic withdrawal gives you time to cool down, time to think clearly, time to realize that what felt urgent and life-threatening in the moment is actually completely irrelevant. Here's a truth that will save you years of wasted energy. Most conflicts that feel absolutely critical right now won't matter at all next week. That argument you almost had, forgotten. That disrespect you almost responded to, nobody remembers. That battle you almost fought wouldn't have changed anything, but understanding the framework intellectually is very different from executing it when your heart's racing and your ego's screaming at you to respond. This is where the transformation from reactive to strategic becomes a practical skill you have to build deliberately. You start small. When someone provokes you, pause. Just pause. Count to 10 if you need to. Take a breath. In that pause, ask yourself one simple question. Will this matter tomorrow? Not am I right? Not should I defend myself, but does this genuinely matter beyond this moment? Most of the time, the answer is no. And that pause, that moment of self-control before reaction, that's where your power lives. Then you practice small withdrawals to build the muscle. Someone says something stupid in a group chat, don't respond. Someone tries to bait you online, scroll past. Someone at work tries to pull you into drama, smile and say you're staying out of it. Each time you successfully withdraw from something meaningless, you're training yourself. You're proving to your own ego that not engaging doesn't kill you, doesn't diminish you, doesn't make you weak. You're building evidence that your attention is valuable, and not everyone deserves it. Type building the skill if you're ready to actually practice this rather than just understand it theoretically, because what comes next is the advanced technique that makes strategic withdrawal not just a defensive move, but an offensive weapon that shifts entire power dynamics in your favor. Once you've built the basic skill of pausing and withdrawing from small provocations, there's an advanced technique that takes this to another level entirely: the art of complete disappearance. This is where most men stumble because they feel the need to explain themselves, to have the conversation, to provide closure. But that's the trap. When someone in your life is consistently toxic, draining, or manipulative, the strategic move isn't to confront them or have some big dramatic conversation where you explain why you're done. The move is to simply become less available, slowly, quietly, without announcement. You stop responding as quickly. Your messages get shorter. You're suddenly busy when they reach out. You decline invitations without elaborate excuses. And over time, the distance grows until one day they realize you're just gone from their life. No drama, no bridge burning, no public declarations, just strategic distance that happened. So gradually they can't even pinpoint when it started. And here's what happens next. They'll notice, they'll reach out, they'll ask what's wrong. And this moment right here is where men destroy their own strategic withdrawal. Because the instinct is powerful. Explain yourself, have the conversation, give them the chance to understand, make them see why you're pulling away. But the moment you explain, you've re-engaged. You've given them an opening to argue, to defend themselves, to pull you back into their orbit. Explaining is the same as fighting. It's engagement, and engagement with people who've proven they don't deserve your energy is exactly what you're trying to escape. So instead, you stay vague. Just been busy, taking care of some things. True enough that it's not a lie, but revealing nothing. And then you stay disappeared. You let them sit with the uncertainty. You let them wonder what they did, what changed, why you're not available anymore. That uncertainty does more damage to their ability to manipulate you than any conversation ever could. This is the transformation that Machiavelli understood at the deepest level. Power isn't about winning every battle. It's not about proving yourself in every conflict. It's not about making sure everyone knows you're strong. Power is about precision. It's about fighting only the battles that genuinely matter, on terrain that favors you, when conditions are optimal. Everything else, all the petty provocations, all the ego-driven conflicts, all the battles that don't serve your larger purpose, you walk away from, you disappear from, you refuse to engage with. And this is what separates dangerous men from desperate ones. The desperate man needs every battle because each conflict is another chance to prove he matters, to demonstrate his worth, to earn validation from a world he doesn't trust, to give it freely. He's constantly fighting because he's constantly afraid that if he doesn't, people will see through him. His engagement is compulsive, driven by deep insecurity, disguised as strength. But the dangerous man, he walks away because he already knows he matters. His sense of worth doesn't come from winning arguments or proving himself to people who don't affect his life. He's made peace with the fact that some people will misunderstand him, dislike him, or think less of him, and he's genuinely okay with that because their opinions have no bearing on his reality. This is the hidden truth behind real masculine power that most men never grasp. Your finite energy, your time, your attention, your emotional bandwidth is your most valuable resource. And every moment you spend proving yourself to someone who doesn't matter is a moment stolen from building something that does. The journey from desperate to dangerous isn't about learning to fight better. It's about learning to walk away more effectively. Write energy management in the comments if this distinction is landing for you, because understanding the difference between these two types of men is one thing, but actually becoming the dangerous one requires confronting some uncomfortable truths about why walking away feels so impossibly difficult, even when you know it's the right move. If you made it this far, you're already different from most people who started watching. Most clicked away the moment they felt uncomfortable, the moment this challenged something they weren't ready to examine. But you stayed. That tells me something about where you are in your journey and what you're actually trying to build in your life. Look, if this resonated with you, if any part of what we talked about today clicked something into place, then you'll want to subscribe to this channel, because this is what we do here. We don't talk about surface-level nonsense. We dig into the uncomfortable truths about power, psychology, and what actually separates men who command respect from men who just demand it. And I promise you, there's more where this came from. Leave a comment right now and just write, "I made it to the end. I read these," and it lets me know this type of content is connecting with people who are serious about this transformation, not just casually browsing. And if you found value in what we covered today, hit that like button. It helps more people find this message, and honestly, it tells me we're on the right track with this material. Before you go, there's a video right here that takes this even deeper into how Machiavelli approached personal relationships and loyalty, when to give it and when to strategically withdraw it. It's a natural continuation of what we just discussed. Click and continue with me over there, because what you just learned is only the beginning of understanding how truly dangerous men operate in this world.